I'm interested in the dynamic between what's really an exception and what's really a rule, and how the dynamic between the rule and the exception, the dynamic between the subjective and the so-called objective. I'm interested in how these things are connected and how they interplay. I was very happy with this title, A Number of Things, because it points out directly to this idea of like how things exist before there's words, and the difficulty for us to grasp reality with limited concepts. And those categories pre-exist before we're born. The possibility to think outside of what's already existing, what's already the norm, is very much rooted in childhood. And this is something we as adults have to protect. And I think the exhibition talks a little bit about that and how we think of them as like not very important or sometimes even ridiculed, like etiquette, politeness. And then if you start thinking about it and looking into it, you understand that, you know, these are like the rules to how we've decided to live together. The floor intervention is a project we did together with Charlap Hyman and his company, Charlap Hyman. The idea was that we wanted to signal that the space of the gallery is really a space that has a sort of in-between quality, that it's neither completely private, neither completely public. It's not like a museum, it's not the street. It has a sort of in-between that I think is really interesting. I wanted it to feel also like it's a playground. Like the space is so big, I wanted people to enjoy how big the space is, not by being oppressed, you know, by the fact it resonates or the floor is hard, but by feeling the space as a possibility. I grew really fascinated by the fluidity of bronze and how the fact that it's both very fluid, you know, like it exists in a liquid form, but it's metal. For example, Misfits has this trace of shapes that have been forced into the wrong hole. The cracks, you know, it looks like it's going to fall apart as well. And the possibility of bronze to represent those very small details, which are just like almost like the texture of the skin. It's the first time I integrate rubber as a material in my work, so this is really a new body of work, and I think that the motivation behind the rubber was very much like in the teaser and in the object for children, the drinking bottle. For example, in Switzerland, they all are in natural rubber, and I love that color. I wanted to refer to the feeling that things are always too big for you that you have as a child. I think the child, the way the whole world is made for adults. And so everything is too big most of the time. It's a bit like Alice in Wonderland. I think this is a very interesting perception. I think probably I have still memory of my own childhood thinking about this feeling of powerlessness, of being too small or being incapacitated. The Abacus, I think, was interesting because they need to be dominating. They need to have this dominating scale so that you see them also as a system, because it is a system, because mathematical system rules the world we live on right now. At the same time, I think there's a playfulness with the abacus as a shape. Now it's mostly used as a toy for children. It's not so much, you know, society used to calculate. But if you think about it, it's a little bit the ancestor of the computer. There is something in this code that is useful. So my point is not to criticize the code. We do need codes, we need rules in a society. They actually are made for us to feel more comfortable with each other. But I think that I wanted to bring the attention to the fact that in a way we think those codes are natural and we think they are obvious, and they are not. And they need to be learned and they can change.